Welcome back to another episode of Wrestling Wednesdays. I cannot believe how lucky I am to have the guest that I have on this occasion. You might know about his history as a three-time Golden Glove boxing champion in good old New York. You might remember him from his days as being a WCW television world champion. Or you might know him as a former Intercontinental champion in WWF. It is Johnny B. Bad, the Wildman, and the Marvellous Marc Mero. Mark, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Martin. How are you, man?
I'm good. I'm buzzing. I am literally cannot believe I've got the chance to talk to you. I have the pleasure of doing many interviews, and I didn't think I'd ever get the chance to speak to you on one of these things. It's just a genuine pleasure.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate that, man. I'm just so looking forward to coming over to the UK, man. Excited about that. It's just like a week away.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'll so when as we're recording this, it's a week away, but it'll come out next. It'll come out on the Wednesday before it. So in just a couple of days' time, if you haven't got your
Okay.
tickets, then make sure you do get them on the For Love of Wrestling. We'll put a link underneath so people can know how to get the chance to come and see you. They obviously get the chance to come and meet you or get a photo with you. I'm sure there'll be lots of exciting merchandise that people will be bringing along. I mean, I'm a big collector of cards. I'm sure people have got figures from back in the 90s of yours as well that they'll bring along. What is that like when people bring that sort of stuff to you? What did it feel to be immortalized in a card or a figure?
Oh man, it's a blessing to meet people that have saved that stuff, and that was over 20 years ago, and that have those that want me to sign them, and it's an honor. It really is.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And am I right in thinking that your last match for WWE was the UK event London Capital Carnage? Is that correct?
That was my last event for WWE or WWF back then. And then I went on to retire for a while. Then I came back and wrestled over at TNA for a little bit. And then Hulk Hogan opened up the XWF, which we did that. We taped some shows for that. And then I had one more match which was it was kind of like my retirement match. It was called the 605 Wrestling back then, and WCW was on at 605 United States, and they had the a match that we did a tag team match against Norman Smiley and the Blue Meanie, and just enjoy those guys so much.
Amazing. What an amazing legendary collection of people that would be. It was I'm guessing that was quite fun as well as action packed.
It was, man. Knowing that that was going to be my last match. It was 2006. So what's that? Gosh, 2018 years ago. I mean, it's just incredible when you think about how fast time has gone by. But knowing it was my last match was just a joy to get the victory and just kind of sail off in the sunset, never knowing what the next chapters of my life would end up being, which is incredible.
Yeah, which I want to obviously touch base on shortly. It's fascinating all the work you do now and the impact you have on so many people around the world. But I will touch base a little bit on Capital Carnage if that's okay, because
Sure.
it's probably not realised how memorable that was because that was the moment you took the Sable bomb at the end of the match. Obviously, I know we were joking before we started this about what happened towards the end of the match with Jaqueline and probably something as a teenage boy I probably shouldn't have seen at the time. But it was an incredible moment of that whole switch into the Attitude Era. I mean, it's a very iconic moment, that power bomb that you took from Sable, and what a great opportunity to kind of showcase mixed matches and mixed wrestling in WWF at the time.
Yeah, it was, we wrestled obviously at the WrestleMania. I think it was the first mixed tag match ever in WWF. And we wrestled, it was me and Jaqueline against Gold Dust, and I'm sorry, me and Sable against Gold Dust and Luna. And it was a great match. I mean, for what we had to work with and stuff, it really was. And Gold Dust Dustin is such an incredible talent.
Yeah. And what are your memories of working at obviously UK events when you've been over on tours and for WWF at the time and obviously Capital Carnage at the end? What are your thoughts on looking back on the crowds and the reactions you used to get?
I first went over there in 1991, or I think it was 1992, somewhere around there, as Johnny B. Bad, and in full character, full regalia, and they were almost like shocked in a sense to see this character walking along the street with with that stuff I used to have to wear for Johnny B. Bad, but it was incredible that I mean, some of the best fans in the world are from the UK. They love their wrestling, and getting to work with, remember Steve Regal, Lord Stephen Regal with WCW, and was such a talent. I learned so much from that guy. The style he had, and to this day, because he has so much respect for the business. One of the things that he always did was he would wipe his feet before he got in the ring. And now you see a lot of the new people coming in that have been taught by Steve that do the same thing. And you go, and as soon as you see it, I go, I know where they got that from. They got it from Steve, because he's the one person that respected the business so long and so much that he taught the newcomers to do the same thing.
Yeah, incredible. I was watching a little bit of that this week, your feud with him. What were those matches like in terms of, because you kind of you got to a point where you'd established your character and you weren't you weren't just the new guy anymore. You'd got into some really big storylines. Working with him must have been a bit of a bit of a, like you mentioned, you learned a lot from him. The culture change in terms of bringing that British style into the ring for you. Was that the sort of first time you'd really worked with a sort of a submission expert like that? I think you trained with the Malenkos, didn't you?
Yes. Yeah, he was, like I said, he was just incredible talent, and just his knowledge of the business was so much. But the first belt I ever won, the world television title, was from Steve, and he was just I can't say enough good things about him to work with him and to learn from him. And as I look back now on our my career and what I learned, I appreciate it so much more even now, because at the time you don't realize what you're learning and what you're gaining and the respect you're having for this person. And it was just, I mean, he threw those European uppercuts, man. I never saw them before. So my first few times I wasn't really prepared for it, and almost got knocked out. But thank goodness I take a good punch or a good elbow.
That's awesome. I mean, those are sort of the days still when most people went into the ring without the match pre-planned. I was listening to an interview you did recently on a podcast. I think it was the Hannibal one, where you spoke about the training you did in the power plant with Brian Pillman, and obviously you put the match together a little bit.
Right.
What were those days like for you when you were learning and sort of stepping in the ring with people that are sort of just calling it on the fly? How difficult was that for you to take on?
Well, because it's like you're kind of nervous because you're new and stuff like that, and you want to make sure you know everything that's going to happen, because you want to prepare yourself for it. I work with DDP when we first started doing our feud together. We try to plan everything out, but it doesn't always go the way you plan. Things happen, and I remember working with people like Regal and Flair, Triple H, Arn Anderson, people that could just change things up, to realizing that this is going to work better than what we talked about, or what you kind of went over a little bit, and they just changed it. And now Ric Flair, he wouldn't even talk to you. He wouldn't even mention anything. He goes, "Look, call in the ring," and so you're like, "Oh my gosh, what am I going to do?" But because I've seen so many of his matches, I kind of understood a lot of things that would be coming up in the match. And funny story about that was when I was younger, I was watching Ric Flair on TV, and he used to, put his hand out to shake your hand, and you go to shake it, and you go woo. And I'll never forget that the first time I'm wrestling Ric Flair, and it was in Germany. It was a European tournament we were in, and he did it. And I wasn't even thinking. I went out to shake his hand thinking he's just being a gentleman. And he did the woo. And it's like I have a flashback to when I was a kid. I go, I can't believe I remember that as a kid. It was one of those really wild experiences that I had wrestling Rick. And he was a talent. I mean, there's so, I think about, I really believe I was in the world of wrestling at the perfect time. I mean, the locker room was just incredible, where you had everybody from Shawn Michaels, The Rock, you had Ric Flair, you had Hulk Hogan, even the Ultimate Warrior was there when I first got there. And I think about all this amazing talents, wrestling Sting, and I was able to wrestle so many of the greats. I mean, when you think about the Mount Rushmore of wrestling, I got to wrestle all those guys. So it was, or wrestle, or at least meet them. Bruno Sammartino was another great one that I got to meet and really, really enjoy his friendship.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, it was a decade of looking back at who's who of wrestling. You literally came across pretty much everyone that everyone talks about these days. So,
Mhm.
um, I suppose I've got to ask really about the business now in terms of, I don't know how much you watch of the current product, but it's getting to those sort of levels of popularity in mainstream media, in terms of the revenue they make and in terms of the pop culture scenarios it was in the sort of mid to late 90s. with the connection you had, where obviously Dusty Rhodes had a massive influence on you when you started off as Johnny B. Bad, and the influence on the character, you obviously worked with Dustin in like you mentioned with WrestleMania, in sort of as a feud, and also collaborating with to try and insult Sable. But now, if you think about it, the grandson of a plumber, Cody Rhodes, what are your thoughts on the success that he's having, and the growth on the Rhodes family name that he's bringing to the table at the moment?
I don't get to watch as much as I'd like to, but of course I see clips of it on social media quite a bit, and realizing, Diamond Dallas Page lives close to me, about 20 minutes away, and we're very close. And I know Dallas is very close with Cody,
Hmm.
so I hear an awful lot and get to see when I get to see clips of it, or Dallas will forward me something. It's just an amazing. I never got to meet Cody, only because we were different eras, but working with his brother Dustin so many times. I mean, there's some guys I work with numerous times, because we were not only in WCW together, but we were also in the WWE together. But I'm very, very proud of him. I hope he finishes his story, and I hope that continues, and he's really becoming a superstar. Not many people have have booed The Rock after being a babyface. So I'm kind of, wow, it's incredible.
Yeah, it's very, very impressive. I was just thinking, if you're that close to Diamond Dallas Page, and I know you've spoken many times about your close friendship, that must be the most motivating breakfast or lunch ever if anyone sits down with you two for 20 minutes. How on earth you couldn't walk away from that and feeling great about your life and great about the world and motivated? Then that must be incredible. You two together, the energy you have must be pretty special.
We have so much fun together. I go down to his house and we do the DDPY together, the yoga we do. And then last week he had me in that damn cold plunge, man. I never did that before, and it was the first time. And a funny story about that was that I'm coming over his house. We're doing this whole gauntlet. We're doing his new power cuffs. We're doing the cold plunge. We're doing the DDPY. We're doing a little workout. We're doing all this stuff he had planned for the day. So we start out the day with the cold plunge. Well, that particular day was so cold in Georgia that there was frost on the ground. So I go out there and just put my shorts on, and come outside, and I just want to get in and get it over with, right? He starts sharing with me why this is so important, on how it fights inflammation. He's going on and on. I'm going, oh, I'm freezing. Let me just get this over with. And I go, Dale, let me just get in this thing, man. That's enough. Okay, I can't take it out here anymore, right? And of course, you get in, you got to go right up to your neck too. So you got to slide way down in this cold plunge. And it is so cold. People have this is like this so cold. It's just about freezing. And I remember I started hyperventilating right away. Like my body was in shock. And he's going, just tell me a story. Tell me a boxing story. Tell me a story. So I started sharing stories with him, which really helped me get to that, 2-3 minute mark. And then you get out, and it's like you got to start rubbing your legs to get blood back in them. And then we go right from there to this oxygen chamber thing he's got, where you ride a bicycle with an oxygen mask on. It was incredible. I'm like, this guy is going to kill me. And it brought me back to the memories of when we used to train together at the power plant, of how hard we would go and just learning new moves, or practicing things that we want to do in the matches. Because we were often in the opening match, which you really want to get the crowd into it. So you want to have a good opening match. You want people to remember that opening match. And we said to ourselves, like, man, we want to steal the show. So we always worked really hard together. And you're right. It's like never planning on what was going to happen after wrestling, and then watching his success with inspiring so many people and changing so many lives. And of course, me going off into speaking at schools all over the world. I mean, people don't realize I've been to Russia speaking at schools. I've been to Guatemala. It's just been incredible. I've been 17 years now speaking to students and investing in their futures and their lives. It's just been incredible.
Yeah, it makes a massive difference. I mean, people obviously can see videos on YouTube that your company have shared and other people have shared about your presentations and the amount you open up during those presentations. Obviously, the story you talk about when you're in Japan and finding out the news about your mother. I won't spoil too much in case people want to listen to it properly. We can put a link underneath for people to listen to it. But how does that journey happen for you in terms of moving into motivational speech? And what's it feel like when you realize and you get the feedback from people that you are making a massive difference to so many lives out there?
It was nothing ever planned. I went through some really difficult, dark times after I got out of wrestling, and of course going through divorce and everything. And I remember that, I went through all the money that I had left over. And so I had to get a job as a personal trainer at Gold's Gym. And I remember being at Gold's Gym and people would come in and go, "Oh my gosh, Marc Mero." They go, "What are you doing here?" I go, "I work here." They go, "You work at Gold's Gym?" And it was very humbling, but very gratifying to change people's lives at the gym through personal training.
Mm.
And it got so good that I got so good at it that I opened up my own little personal training studio, a small studio, and I had 4 full-time trainers and myself, and it just took off. And then one day I got a call from Melbourne High School in Florida, and they just wanted me to come and speak to the football players. They go, "Hey, Marc, we saw you on TV before, and would love you to come speak to our players, about not doing the right thing in life and don't do steroids and all these things that I went through in my life, right?" And I said, "I'd be glad to, man." I went, it was like, 50, 60 athletes, I spoke to. But I remember after the presentation, this was when Facebook was real popular with kids. I was getting all these private messages through Facebook on how it inspired someone or changed their life or whatever it would, which is all positive stuff. And I said, "Wow, that's so cool." Well, unbeknownst to me, the coach called another local high school and said, "Hey, we just had Marc Mero. The kids loved him." Well, that school said, "Well, let him come speak to the whole school." And I did. And again, it took off. And then a lot of people don't realize this, that the video that went viral about my mom that I speak about in the presentation, it was actually filmed by DDP. Dallas, I was doing schools in Georgia. I was living in Florida at the time. I was doing schools in Georgia. So I would stay with DDP, and he said, "Hey, man, you mind if the guys come down and film it?" And I always get a photo release and a video release from schools when I go. And so Dallas had his crew come down and film my presentation. They come up with this 5-minute piece that he calls me, goes, "Hey, bro, you mind if we post this?" He goes, "You never know this. These things can go viral. It's really good." I said, "Sure." Sure enough, man, that thing just took off. And not only that, it was started being shared by so many celebrities. I remember Charlie Sheen and Lil Wayne and Marlon Wayans, and the list goes on and on of all these celebrities that started sharing it. So one day we just decided to see how many views we could find on it, right? In like 10 minutes, we found over 500 million views on that video. So it's just incredible on how many people have seen that video. But it opened up so many doors for me around the world. And I started traveling all over. And it just, I averaged about 230 events a year up until the pandemic. And then when the pandemic came, I realized, I've been living out of a hotel for almost 30 years of my life, and I
Mm.
really wanted to slow down. So I only do about 100 events a year, which is really, it's still a lot, but at least I'm home more and really enjoying life.
Yeah, 'cause you have to obviously recharge your batteries, because obviously it's a very moving thing to do, to obviously go out and be energetic and perform in front of a crowd all the time. But it's incredible the work you do, and as I say, I can't recommend it enough. If people haven't listened to your work or watched it, well, I'd say I'm not surprised you got that many views, because it is very, very moving. So obviously, thank you for what you're doing now in after your wrestling career. Um, People obviously have got the chance to come and see you. As I say, it's very lucky the chance you come into the UK again. It's been a while since you've had the chance to come over this way. What are they in for if they come to the love of wrestling? What are you going to be like on the day? What stories are you looking forward to sharing with people?
This is exciting for me because, like I said, I have not been there since the Capital Carnage match. So, I mean, how was it? That was, I believe, 98, right?
Yeah,
98, 18, my gosh, 20 something, 24, 20, 26 years, whatever it was. It's exciting for me. I'm really looking forward to meeting the UK fans, and especially ones that can remember that were old enough like yourself, being a teenager, right, at the time, and that can remember that match or remember the character Johnny B. Bad, and then many of the new fans that can go back on YouTube or on WWE site and watch old matches that we were in. So it's pretty cool to not only meet the old fans, but obviously new fans that really appreciate that style of wrestling and the way it was back then in the Attitude Era. And the Monday Night Wars we had with WCW and WWE was incredible.
yeah. I think it'd be remiss of us, we spoke about this obviously at the start when we were talking about Capital Carnage. I'd love to hear just your memories of Tim White, the legendary referee that was obviously involved in a very unique moment in that match.
Well, I mean, we obviously knew what was going to happen. It was almost like we are really pushing the envelope here, going to having Jaqueline have her top ripped off. But you do what the bookers tell you to do. And I just remember that Jaqueline, she got into this thing with Tim Wright where she ended up on his shoulders, and Sable comes behind and rips off that top. And of course, Jaqueline had nothing on underneath. And you, as a young man, probably seen more than you should be seen at that time. But it was, well, still talked about to this day of that match because you didn't see it too often. It happened a few more times after that in different ECW, I believe, and a couple others did it, but didn't happen very often that you would see that.
No, and obviously working with those guys, Jacqueline's what an incredible talent she was, and still obviously around today, helping bring the new guys through. What was it like working with her closely?
Like you said, she was a talent. She was such a good company person. I mean, she really helped her and Luna really helped to get over the Sable character in wrestling because Sable never wrestled before and didn't really know the psychology or anything about wrestling. And so we worked matches out that would benefit her to make her look good, that she really knew a lot. But it was really those girls in the beginning, Tori and a few others, that really helped her out a lot and did matches that she could do without exposing her too much. And Jaqueline, and there's just incredible talent,
Yeah,
and an incredible person too. I loved hanging out with her, working with her, traveling, and everything. And then obviously being together as my new main squeeze after I was dumped by Sable.
yeah, brilliant storylines. When you came back as Marvellous, the very evil man that you were, it was great. In terms of For Love of Wrestling, is it quite exciting for you as well, not just with the fans, but to know that you'll be back meeting your former colleagues and changing travel roommates all in the same roof again?
I mean, I'm really, that's one of the things that's so fun about going to conventions or things like this is getting to see the guys that used to work with. And the main thing, the thing that really strikes me is so beautiful is that the the camaraderie we have to this day, like even guys that you didn't like back then, or maybe didn't see eye to eye or argued with, or maybe even fought with, man, when you see them today, it's like everyone just gives each other a big hug. And it's like we did something together that not many people in this world will get to do. And so it's almost like everything's forgiven and forgotten, and it's just a joy to see everybody. And that's what I'm really looking forward to. Not only seeing the fans, but seeing some of the guys that I used to work with and travel with and have some matches with. Just incredible.
Yeah, it's going to be a beautiful couple of days. Just before you go, I've got to ask you because basically you were involved in so many incredible matches throughout your career in terms of the impact it had as well, not just on your own career but others. I know you've spoken before about the impact with Brawl for All and what that was like with your feud with Bradshaw at the time, and then the Austin 316 wouldn't have happened if you'd not caught him in the lip. But people can look back and obviously speak to you at the event about your career matches. But I wondered what your thoughts are on the success that Triple H and The Rock have had and the positions they're both now in terms of running WWE. Did you envision any of that? Do you think when you were working with these guys that one day they could end up being the stars they are?
The Rock's first match was I was the captain of the Survivor Series team that had The Rock, Jake the Snake Roberts, and Barry Windham in the match along with myself. And I don't think anyone could have envisioned of how amazing he would do, not only in the wrestling business but in life. And couldn't be more happy for him. And Triple H just had such a love for the business, just so much love and respect for the business that seeing him, he's the perfect guy to help keep those ratings up and keep the storylines going. And obviously it's working really well right now with everything going on with the bloodline and Cody coming in and doing what he's doing now. And it's just and seeing obviously the money those guys are making today, which is incredible compared to what we were making. And then seeing it escalate the way it is today, I couldn't be happier to see the business grow the way it is. Um, Stone Cold Steve Austin, he's another one. I didn't even mention his name, but I had some of my favorite matches with him. And there's a couple guys that I probably wrestled more than anyone else. And Triple H and Stone Cold and DDP are probably three of the top guys that I work with over and over. And I got to throw Steve Regal in there too. especially guys that were in WCW and WWE together that we got to work with and do programs together. But I just think that Triple H and Stone Cold and DDP are the three guys that I probably worked more than anyone else.
Yeah, and that's what an amazing career to be able to look back on there and reflect on, and it'll be something that hopefully people can ask you about when they meet you in person in Manchester, and it's the 2nd and 3rd of March for the For Love of Wrestling event. I just want to say huge thank you to your time. It's so great talking to you and hearing your insight in what an amazing career you had. I'm really excited, obviously, the fact you're coming over back to the UK for the beginning of March and the chance for people to come and get things signed. Like me, I've got collector cards. People have probably got figures and programs from the events back in the 90s. But thank you so much for your time. Genuine pleasure, and it's lovely to get a chance to speak to you, Mark.
Martin, it was my pleasure, man. You do a great job. Thank you.
Thank you very much.